This week on Christian World News, tensions are high in the Middle East. A U.S. task force is in the region. A strike on Iran could be just days away, and the regime is threatening to retaliate for any strike. Plus, in northeast Syria, a territory where democracy is practiced and religious freedom protected has been under attack by government forces. And put your survival skills to the test and meet a man who will help you make a fire, build a shelter, and connect with God in the great outdoors. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. Tensions are escalating in the Middle East as another U.S. warship enters the region. Iranian leaders continue to send warnings of retaliation against any U.S. strike. Now they're planning to hold naval operations in the Strait of Hormuz. CBN News' Joshua Swanson reports from Jerusalem.
Another U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Delbert D. Black, is now operating in Middle East waters, bringing the total number of American destroyers in the area to 6, along with an aircraft carrier and additional combat ships. The buildup comes as Iran reportedly received a new shipment of 1,000 drones and prepares for the possibility of direct confrontation. Iranian military leaders are openly threatening U.S. forces, warning that any American strike would be met without delay. The IRGC Army spokesman said on state television a decisive response will be delivered instantly, adding that U.S. bases and aircraft carriers are within the range of our medium-range missiles. At the same time, President Trump says he's had conversations with Iran and is planning more. The president also pointed to the growing U.S. military presence, saying the United States has a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, adding that it would be great if they were not used. In Jerusalem, Israeli leaders are preparing for the possibility of another conflict with Iran. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a high-level security consultation on what officials described as a classified topic. Reports say the briefing focused on the possibility of a U.S. strike, along with concerns that Israel could face significant retaliation. The Israeli Mossad chief, David Barnea, is in Washington meeting with top U.S. officials amid conflicting signals over U.S. readiness to act. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says the U.S. military is fully prepared to carry out President Trump's decision. Speaking during a cabinet meeting, Hegseth warned Iran against pursuing nuclear weapons.
Should not pursue nuclear capabilities. We will be prepared to deliver whatever this president expects of the War Department.
He added that the administration is focused on restoring deterrence and making clear that America's warnings should be taken seriously.
When President Trump said, we're not getting a nuclear Iran, you won't have a nuclear bomb, he meant it. And we sent those B-2s halfway around the world, and they never noticed.
Adding to the pressure on Tehran, the European Union has now designated Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, citing its violent crackdown on protesters.
In Iran, horrific crackdown on protesters has come at a heavy human cost. The EU already has sweeping sanctions in place, and today ministers agreed to designate Iran Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization.
The designation gives EU governments the authority to use their strongest counterterrorism measures far beyond standard sanctions. Meanwhile, Iran's Revolutionary Guard is signaling defiance, announcing plans to conduct live-fire naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway through which much of the world's oil supply passes. Joshua Swanson, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Joshua. Turning now to northeast Syria, where government-backed forces launched an attack on the Kurds. The two sides have now signed a peace agreement, but some are questioning just how long it will last. Chuck Holton reports on the brutal attacks on the Kurdish population and what's at stake for their future.
The Kurds of northeastern Syria were once hailed as America's most effective partner against ISIS. Now they find themselves abandoned and under siege. Since early January, the Syrian army, led by a former al-Qaeda commander Ahmed al-Sharaa, has launched a major offensive against Kurdish-led forces. The assault has displaced more than 150,000 people in just weeks.
In Rojava now, there is a big attack happened in Deir ez-Zor, Raqqa. They took over the three places, and now the front line is in Hasaka and close to the border also. So now we are facing this bullying. We have sleeper cells often inside the city. Many displaced people, they displaced for 4 times.
Kobani, the city famous for heroic Kurdish resistance against ISIS in 2014, is now under siege with water and electricity cut off. Kurdish officials claim hundreds of captured fighters and civilians have been executed. The situation is desperate here at this elementary school in Kamishli, where more than 150 internally displaced people have taken refuge for the last couple of weeks. They have very little food, they have almost no electricity, and heating right now is a big issue. As you can see, the weather is just miserable. It's about 20 degrees at night. So the Pre-Burma Rangers is doing a food distribution here to try to bring some help and some hope to the people who need it the most. The Free Burma Rangers has been conducting emergency distributions and providing medical assistance throughout the region. Syria's Christian minority also fears what the future holds.
We are afraid from maybe some groups, jihadist one, that they come under control of the government related to the Turkey or the other groups.
The crisis follows a U.S. brokered deal between Syria and Israel. When negotiations stalled over Kurdish demands for self-governance, the Syrian government, reportedly with no objections from U.S. negotiators, launched its offensive. A fragile ceasefire is currently in place, but fighting continues.
Maybe President Trump says, I want to be the mediator. So how can we force them to end this massacre as soon as possible? Because the people is waiting.
For now, displaced Kurds and Christians wait anxiously, hoping international pressure will force a political solution.
And Chuck Holton joins us now from northeastern Syria. Chuck, great to see you. Why does Syria want to drive out the Kurds, first of all, and how long do you think this peace will last?
Well, you know, the Kurds have been in control of the eastern third of Syria for more than 10 years, and they've actually done a great job of administering it. It's been the only place outside of Israel in the Middle East where Christians and Yazidis and Druze and Sunni Muslims could all live together in peace. And I've had many trips up here, and you go to a church, no problem. There are lots of Syriac, Armenian Christians, people like that here. And so the forces of al-Jilani are essentially, according to the people that we talk to here, ISIS. They say that's just they've just changed their name. They're just trying to be a kinder, gentler version of ISIS. But in the areas that they control, they are instituting Sharia law. And the Kurds don't want to live under Sharia law. Their women don't cover their heads and things like that. So there's a real culture clash, and that is what has led to al-Jilani, you know, massing power and then pushing the Kurds out of most of the areas that they controlled into 2 pockets now, one around Kobani and one right where I am, which is around Kamishli up in the northeast. And so
I'm sorry.
Today we saw go ahead.
Well, we wanted to ask you, how are the Christians doing? How are they surviving under these attacks, and how can we pray for them?
The Christians have put together their own militias to fight back. And what you can pray is that the agreement they came up with today will actually stick and will be adhered to by the Jilani crew. The agreement that they made in Damascus today gives the Kurds some modicum of self-rule, even though Jilani's agents or officials will come in and take over government posts, the border, things like that in this area. So they've come up with kind of a compromise that will allow them to say that they've brought all of Syria under their control, but will still allow the Kurds to live as they please in this area. But I talked to the former Rojava defense minister just a minute ago at dinner and asked him what he thought of this agreement, and he said, we're not sure, because we know that we can't trust al-Jilani and his people. And so anything that they say, we take with a grain of salt.
Let's talk about Iran. U.S. forces are in the region. Iran is talking tough. Are people in the region where you are expecting war to break out?
Absolutely. They're hoping it will. There are a lot of Kurds, as you know, in Iran as well. And so many of the Kurds that we talk to here in Syria have relatives and friends across the border inside Iran that they get a chance to talk to because their relatives will come close enough to the Iraqi border to get an Iraqi cell signal so they can make a phone call. And what we're hearing from inside Iran is that it's worse than even you're hearing on the news. That the killings have not stopped. They've killed more people in one day than were lost in Gaza in 2 years.
Incredible.
And so, I mean, you think about that, it's insane. And so they are hoping that the president of the United States will actually assist them with taking over their country and kicking out the regime. And what they tell me is that we're not strong enough to do it on our own. We need help.
Well, Chuck, it looks cold there. Stay safe, stay warm. We're praying for you as well. That's Chuck Holton reporting for us from northeastern Syria. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you.
Coming up, put your survival skills to the test and meet a man who helped you make fire, build a shelter, and connect with God in the great outdoors. When survival expert Creek Stewart steps into the wilderness, he doesn't just see trees and rivers. He sees God's provision woven into creation. He also knows how time alone with God in nature can bring healing and transformation to the body and soul. I joined Creek recently in the backwoods of Kentucky, where he's filming his new show, God in the Wild. Okay.
We got it.
Known for his television appearances and best-selling survival guides, Creek Stewart wants to help believers reconnect with God through both practical preparedness and spiritual renewal.
The Lord loves the wilderness. He created it as a place for us to draw closer to Him.
Yeah.
From Adam and Eve in the garden, to Moses and the Israelites, 40 years. Even Jesus, in the very first part of His ministry, was led by the Spirit into the wilderness.
Amen.
Amen.
This is the set of Creek's new outdoor survival show called God in the Wild. They just wrapped up filming their first episode here in the Red River Gorge of Kentucky. It's about getting back in touch with nature, but more importantly, with the God who created it. In their first episode, they take 45-year-old Mark from Indiana into the wild for 3 days and 3 nights.
You should have seen it on day one as he was struggling to start a fire with the bow drill.
My arms were tired, my legs were shaking, and I just didn't think I had anything left in the tank.
Mark, don't quit on me. He said a little prayer, and an ember popped out, and he blew the tinder bundle into flame, and it was just like the perfect metaphor for our week.
Creek sees God in the Wild's mission as twofold.
People of faith who already know Jesus, when they see someone in the trenches, digging into their faith and just not giving up on the Lord, that their faith will be increased.
Yeah.
But I also believe, because it's a wilderness survival show, that people will watch this show who may never shadow the door of a church. And at the end of the day, God is the hero of every story that we will feature on the show. You know, but He's the one character that we can't script. But He always shows up.
How did He show up this week?
Our cast member this week has gone through some tragedy, right? He's lost a daughter. He's had cancer. His mom's had cancer. And he had an opportunity this week to yoke up to Jesus and ask the Lord, instead of me carrying these burdens, how can you use them for your glory?
The wilderness is sort of where God got a hold of you when you had hit rock bottom. Everything in your life was falling apart. What happened?
At the pinnacle of my career, I was on the Today Show, being interviewed by Kathy Lee Gifford and Hoda Kotb, and if you would have watched that show, you would have watched me on TV and you would have said, man, there is a guy that's got everything. He's got a hit television show, numerous best-selling books, a thriving business. All I was thinking about during that interview were the divorce papers on the kitchen table at home, and the fact that I wasn't living with my wife and my newborn son.
Wow. Wow.
And I'll never forget going home and realizing that I have to take my own advice as a wilderness survival instructor, that if you're lost in the wilderness, you have to admit you're lost.
Soon afterwards, Creek rededicated his life to Christ.
He rescued me from where I was. I repented of my sins, and he restored my marriage. And he was very clear. I want you to still teach wilderness survival skills, but I want you to do it in a way that honors me and that brings glory to me.
Today, Creek's passion is providing men and women with a similar transformational experience. When not filming, Creek leads the Wild God Survival Course, a 3-day faith-filled wilderness experience. Participants learn hands-on survival skills, building shelters, starting fires, purifying water, and finding food.
Fire is the king of all survival skills, right? It relates to everything. Like, what can you think of that fire can do?
Keep you warm.
Keep you warm.
Even if you don't have a great shelter.
That's right.
Heat up your food.
It can cook your food, boil your water. See that smoke? Signal for rescue.
And keep the critters away.
Keep the critters away.
Creek's newest book, Emergency Communication 101, teaches readers how to stay connected when disaster strikes, such as cell towers failing and no internet. Creek recommends an off-grid handheld radio.
You don't want a big piece.
From my short time in the wilderness, I sampled an acorn.
The nutritional value of an acorn is surprising. It's got a lot of protein.
And some pine needle tea, which is surprisingly delicious and loaded with vitamin C. Creek reminds us that God hardwired provision into nature because he loves us.
There's something very special about sleeping in a shelter that you've built, next to a fire that you've made, and eating a meal, no matter how bitter it might be.
Yeah, or rustic.
Or rustic, that you've foraged.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing it. And it is a connection to the wilderness and creation and the Creator like nothing that I can think of. Right?
Oh, wow. And then there's light.
It's exciting. There we go. You did it. High five.
High five, Creek. What a day. What a day in the Red River Gorge of Kentucky. Creek's new book, again, Emergency Communication 101, available wherever books are sold. And stay tuned to find out where you can see God in the Wild. They're still in talks with several distributors, but somebody's going to be very lucky to land that show. Well, up next, a hidden story from the Holocaust, how a bold rabbi convinced a king to save tens of thousands of Jews from the Nazis. In 1945, Soviet troops liberated the Nazi death camp in Auschwitz, where more than 1 million people died, most of them Jews. A new book about the Holocaust tells the inspiring story of a rabbi in Bulgaria whose bold intervention saved tens of thousands of Jews. CBN's Raj Nair brings us the story.
During the Holocaust, as Hitler's final solution systematically exterminated Europe's Jewish population, a rabbi named Daniel Zion, who had become a messianic follower of Yeshua, became instrumental in rescuing tens of thousands of Jewish lives.
They went to see the king himself, and the Rabbi Daniel Zion delivered a letter to the king and say, if you hand the 50,000 Jews to Hitler, one day you're going to stand before God and their blood will be on your hands. And this is how you'll be remembered. So God used them to bring the fear of God upon the government of Bulgaria and the king of Bulgaria.
This piece of little-known history is now told in the book Legacy of Hope, written by Avi Mizrahi. Now, he and his daughter Devorah are now seeing this story result in something truly miraculous inside Israel.
And through the story, you can actually share the gospel. Because here's a hero for our people who did something tremendous for our people, saving 50,000 Jewish people. That's not a small thing. not only was he Jewish, but he also believed in the Messiah, Yeshua. So it's a story that Jewish people can get a hold of and Israelis can get a hold of.
This is a wonderful opportunity to sharing with our Israeli friends that you can be Jewish, you can even be a rabbi, Orthodox rabbi, and you can believe in Yeshua because he's the only hope. And when we Messianic Jews and Christian believers come together, we can stand together as the one human against the evil and overcome evil in such a time it is.
As bright as this evangelistic story has become in Israel, it's also set against the backdrop of a worldwide resurgence of anti-Semitism. From Manchester to Washington to Sydney's Bondi Beach, violence and hatred against the Jewish people are rampant. CBN News asked Devorah what Christian believers can learn from the legacy of hope.
Through it all, they never gave up and they did not stay silent. For them, they were vocal. They prayed. They gathered Jews into their homes, into their churches. They were vocally and very much active in saving of the Jews of Bulgaria. Who knows if by us being active, maybe by our actions, they will see their Messiah and the veil will be removed. And I said, it's actually now that we need to stand for the Jewish people when it's hard and when we're persecuted and when they're persecuted, even to risk our lives, because we know that the Jewish people are part of God's bigger plan. And if we want to be part of God's plan, we have to be part of this too.
Raj Nair for CBN News.
Finally this week, hundreds of college students made commitments to follow Jesus Christ at a 5-day gathering in Phoenix, Arizona. The Urbana Missions Conference hosted 7,000 students pursuing God's vision for global missions. 42% of attendees dedicated themselves to exploring God's plan for their lives in the context of global missions. More than 800 made first-time decisions or recommitted their lives to following Jesus. I've been to one of those and they're fantastic. Thanks for joining us this week. Until we see you again, goodbye and God bless you.